Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar titled Sustainability and Environmental Responsibility. My name's Freddie, and I'm just going to run through the housekeeping on the webinar. If you could close any browsers or apps that you've got running in the background just to save your bandwidth, and set the volume to a nice comfortable level so you can hear the presenters. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, if you could just type them into the chat box, that'll come directly to me, and then I will be able to assist you. If you do have any questions, we've got a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. If you'd like to pop those into the Q&A box, and again, I'll filter those through and ask our experts. And you will receive a copy of the slides and a recorded version of this webinar that should be out next week. So today we are going to run through an introduction. We're going to discuss what is sustainability, improve your sustainability with energy management certification, environmental responsibility, how to comply with environmental responsibility using a management system, and then, as I previously mentioned, we'll have a Q&A session. So our presenters today, we've got Terry Coyle. Terry came to SDS United Kingdom with 4 years experience managing energy within an energy management system, and that was for a manufacturing organisation within an energy intensive industry. Terry has over 10 years experience of auditing energy management systems with SGS and has been auditing ISO 50001 as a lead auditor since 2012, working with many leading organisations across a variety of industry sectors. We've also got Sarah Jo Clark here. She started in the industry in 2014 and began working here at SGS in 2019. Her role with us is to support organisations in obtaining ISO certification and to help them with continuous improvement by identifying training and other business improvement opportunities. Sarah Jo's collaboration throughout SGS ensures all client experience is positive. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Terry. Terry, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. So what is sustainability? In natural terms, it is the ability of a system to maintain its own viability or to use natural resources so they are not depleted or permanently damaged. Next slide. There has been a significant evolution of our thinking on sustainability. Up until the 1980s, sustainability was not thought of really outside of the context of an ecosystem. But that began to change, unfortunately, much slower than most scientists would have liked. So the United Nations provided a new context for the term sustainability, which included that of dealing with human existence. It wasn't really until the 1980s that people began to think of humanity and the planet in the terms of an expiry date. When businesses emphasize sustainability, there's been a shift away from the old school thinking of the bottom line, that being profit, to a more new school thinking of the triple bottom line. This concept still, of course, focuses on profit, but now also considers its people and its effects on the planet. Organizations have begun to realize that long-term success only happens when all three of these are considered when making business decisions. The Industrial Revolution really began the cycle of manufacturing with little regard for anything but the bottom line. To be fair, the science and awareness of the impacts of this were simply unknown. Resources then were plentiful and the air and water was clean and pure. Sustainability just simply wasn't even on the faintest of radars at that point. Since World War II, however, developed economies were heavily focused on consumerism, convenience and disposability with little or no regard for the impact of that on our planet. In the past 30, but especially the past 10 years, there has been a real shift in businesses towards sustainability models, with more organizations now embracing the opportunities that sustainability can bring. But what caused this change? Essentially, this was driven by the younger generations, for example, the millennials mostly, who are much better educated. They're more health conscious, more concerned about the environment. They value creativity and work enjoyment as much as how much they have in their pocket, and are more brand loyal and expect much more from everyone and everything. This all affects their buying habits, and it is this change that is probably the single biggest driver in changing organizations' views on sustainability. The traditional linear economy of take, make and dispose is now given way to a circular economy of make, use and return. And finally, sustainability has caused businesses to consider a life cycle assessment where the triple bottom line is reviewed at each phase of its product's life cycle, considering a full cradle to grave approach. Next slide, please. SDS is the world's leading inspection, verification, testing, and certification company. We're recognized as a global benchmark for quality and integrity with more than 95,000 employees operating over 2,400 offices and labs all over the world. We're strong experience in delivering innovative solutions and services that transform our customers' operations and value chains with more than 140 years being in business. A lot of this all working towards sustainability services. Next slide, please. So SGS have been working considerably on ESG area and environmental responsibility with the services now, a wide range of services being able to offer across testing, verification, certification, and training. Those include the likes of bespoke energy audits, which those include basically conducting an energy audit to an organization's needs and the scope of which they need that audit to be developed and designed towards. Energy savings opportunity schemes for the ESOS assessments, and then we also do greenhouse gas verification services. So you can see that we have quite a wealth. Now that's not even everything, but that's quite a wealth, and taking it almost from cradle to grave. So we SGS have a good suite of services to be able to help any organisation on their path to net carbon zero, or to help them improve their energy efficiency or their sustainability. So next slide, please. So before I talk about 50,001, next slide, please. I want to provide you with some background information and context, as we've already touched upon in the previous slides. And although there are some that would argue, it is clear to most that the climate is changing with a high probability, and it's a high probability that burning of fossil fuels is contributing to this. This is driving governments, albeit some quicker than others, to act by not only reducing reliance on fossil fuels, but to actively move towards renewable energy sources and to improve energy efficiency. This can clearly be seen through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, which are officially known as Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is a set of 17 global goals with 169 targets covering a broad range of sustainable development issues. These include combating climate change and improvements in energy efficiency. According to ISO, this standard contributes, or 50,001 standard contributes to the following sustainability goals, or development goals of the SDGs. And that's Goal 7, which is affordable and clean energy. Goal 11, sustainable cities and communities. Goal 12, responsible consumption and production. And Goal 13, the climate change. This can also be seen through the Paris Climate Change Agreement, which aims to limit climate warming to 1.5 to 2 degrees C above pre-industrial levels, with full global cooperation, well, mostly. Although these are the most recent examples and point to a greater worldwide acceptance and cooperation, climate change and energy efficiency frameworks are not new. For example, the EU Energy Efficiency Directive. At a local level, to meet these requirements and commitments, governments flow them down to industry in the form of legislative requirements such as ESOS in the UK, or by providing incentives to improve their energy performance or reduce carbon emissions. As well as governments, the need to address climate change is also widely accepted and now even expected by even the person on the street, which puts further pressure on organisations to be seen to be contributing. As a result, we see a lot of organisations already setting energy as one of their own sustainable development goals within their organisations. Next slide, please. According to a recent survey, 30% of businesses responded that they were not sure how to reduce their energy costs. 90% of businesses responded that they would be negatively impacted if costs continue to rise. There has been an average of an annual 15% increase of corporate energy costs since 2012, and 7% of businesses would potentially be out of business if this trend was maintained. Next slide, please. So all of this brings into focus the reasons for energy management. In 2011, ISO 50001 was born in response to these demands on organizations as a tool to help them manage and improve energy performance. It gives organizations the requirements for implementing an energy management system and promotes energy management best practices and behaviors. The two main goals of an energy management system are A, credible energy savings, and B, continuous improvement in energy performance and the energy management system. The standard requires that organizations collate its energy consumption data so as to better understand how it's using energy so that it can make data-driven, informed decisions. The ISO 50001 framework can be used for strategic development and deployment of technologies for energy efficiency within any industry, including industrial, commercial, institutional, and governmental, just to name a few examples. It provides organizations with a recognized framework for integrating energy efficiency best practices into their management processes. In particular, ISO 50001 follows the Plan, Do, Check, Act process for continual improvement of energy performance, including energy efficiency, use, and consumption. And it's this holistic approach to energy management within an organization that really helps organizations deliver that change and that improvement in energy performance, which works towards their overall energy and sustainability goals. Next slide, please. So it's clear to see why energy management is a complete no-brainer. Improved energy management reduces costs, which improves profitability. To maximize this profitability, it is important to recognize that organizations need to look holistically at how they use energy. For example, not just through direct energy use of equipment, facilities, processes, etc., but also considering their supporting activities like distribution, which are also important in the management of an organization's overall energy use and how they impact the environment. Given our current reliance on fossil fuels, the natural consequences of improved energy efficiency is a reduction in our carbon emissions. As already discussed, in many countries, there are now emissions targets backed by financial incentives or legislative requirements. For example, in the UK, we've got climate change agreements, the EU/ED/ESOS. On top of that, net zero carbon targets are also now being announced almost daily. And the term is now synonymous with climate leadership. World governments, and particularly the UK, have committed to achieving net zero carbon with a significant flow down of requirements to businesses already being felt or likely to in the very near future. So by implementing an energy management system, you have a great tool to help ensure long-term reductions in carbon emissions and at the same time meet many of our legislative requirements. Increased costs of energy cannot be ignored and are having significant impacts on virtually every industry. With costs increasing, yet customers demanding better products and services for better prices, margins are continually being squeezed. It is also fair to say that since the global economic crisis from 2007, many companies have had to look hard at all costs and overheads to make important decisions on where cuts need to be made or where efficiencies can be improved. As one of the most significant overheads for most companies, energy consumption has been a logical area of interest and significant potential for savings. Evidence shows that organizations adopting the ISO 50001 standard are realizing initial energy improvements of 10% or typically closer to 20% in most situations, and are achieving net cost savings associated with that, mostly through low cost or no cost changes to operations. As we already previously discussed, and as we all know through recent publicized cases, that consumers increasingly care about the way in which organizations from whom they buy goods and services conduct themselves and do business. Demonstrating improved energy efficiency, therefore, offers organizations an opportunity to reinforce brand image, not simply because reduced energy usage can directly affect the cost of their goods and services, but because of the positive image that it sends out about an organization's values. Next page, please. So SDS' suite of services include not just certification, but also training courses. We have various courses built around any organization's needs, from introductory courses right through to 50,001 lead auditor courses. All of these courses can be done through e-learning or virtually through virtual-led training courses through the likes of Zoom and that. And today's wonderful progression through home working. I think everybody's now familiar with using virtual platforms to conduct pretty much every aspect of business, whether that's training or work or learning or whatever. So all these courses can be run virtually, and we can also, that's not to say that we've moved completely away from our in-house courses. Hopefully with the economy now starting to open back up and things beginning to get back to normal, SDS will be starting to re-deliver courses to suit your needs in-house. Next slide, please. So that's my part of it. Finished on sustainability and energy management. At this point, I'll pass you over to Sarah Jo, who'll take you forward for environmental responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Good morning, all. Okay, so environmental responsibility. So the aim of environmental responsibility is to reduce the damaging effects that an organisation could cause. And some examples of that would be energy use, as Terry's alluded to. It could be water use, waste management, recycling, emissions. The list is really endless. Next slide, please, Freddie. So going beyond environmental compliance can bring many benefits to your organisation, such as reduced risk, improved reputation and cost savings. So if you look at the standard, and an example of cost savings, for example, could be anything as small as turning lights off. So our auditor may, if you're having an audit against environmental responsibility in 14,001, it could be something as simple as making sure that you're not leaving lights on in meeting rooms once you've finished with them, or maybe monitoring your electronic output. So we could save you money by checking those sorts of devices. Could be, as I said, something as simple as using half-hourly meters to save on lights and electricity. And a good example of that is, especially with people working from home at the moment, if you could imagine you had 5 employees that all left their laptops on in a day on their hour lunch break, and you times that by 5 people per week, over the space of a year, that could amount to 720 hours of electricity being used for really nothing. So the standard's going to drive you to look at risks such as that. So acting in a socially and environmental responsible way is more than just a legal duty now. It can affect your financial success and long-term future of your organisation. Next slide, please, Freddie. So how to comply with environmental responsibility using a management system. Next slide, please. So society, as Terry alluded to, is becoming more and more aware of global warming and preservation of the environment, and it's increasingly important, as it's the word on everybody's lips at the moment. So using 14,001 certification is going to show commitment to complying with these standards. So it's going to help to support you in reducing your environmental responsibility, and that can be from daily operations, and it also helps you to become more sustainable. So the standard's going to take into consideration environmental protection and pollution prevention. So we could look at things, for example, like your waste collection or your CO2 emissions. For example, if you may work for a logistics company, if you think about the fleet that's on the road, could you do less driving? Could you plan better routes? Could you organise something within the organisation that's going to really make sure that you're making the best out of that route? Could you reduce packaging? Could you maybe do 1 delivery a day as opposed to 2 to stop these pollution and these CO2 emissions being, sort of pumped into the air? There's a lot of things that you can do that are really small changes that are going to end up having a really huge impact. And this is something that 14,001 quite heavily drives you to look at. Next slide, please. So 14,001 is applicable to any business type, and it is written by the International Organization for Standardization. And the standard essentially maps out a framework for an organization to follow and set up an effective environmental management system. So again, we would be looking at things like waste and pollution, if you've got waste carriers licenses, where are you getting rid of things like electrical equipment? Are you in line with the Environmental Protection Act? These things are really going to help drive cost savings and also help the environment. 14001 certification will prove that your environmental management system has been audited and certified against a worldwide standard. So if you do have an ISO 14001 certificate from an accredited certification body like SDS, this can also help set you apart from competition, but it's also going to prove to your stakeholders, suppliers, even your staff, that you are committed to making a change within sustainability and the environment. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of having a 14001 ISO standard? To be honest, there's many, but a few are listed here. So it's going to manage your environmental aspects effectively. So as per what I've alluded to already, it's going to really help you to look at what the risks within your business are. It's going to improve your compliance with environmental legislation. So environmental legislation is 100% a client's responsibility. So we can be there to ensure that we're helping you on that path and making sure that you are really up to date with those legislations. It's going to help with the prevention of pollution, as previously spoken about. So looking at, you know, freight companies, or how much packaging you use, or how many drop-offs per week you might use for couriers, all of those sorts of things. It's going to help to minimize energy and resource usage, reducing operating costs. So it's going to really help you to reduce operational costs. As Terry alluded to, for 50001, it follows the plan, do, check out cycle. So continuous improvement within an environmental performance. And that's one of the really key drivers of a standard, an ISO standard. It's to continuously improve. We don't send auditors to catch you out, as some people may believe. It's to help you to improve your systems within your organization so that the output is positive. It's going to reduce the risk of penalties and avoid litigation, and penalties within this environment can be for your waste carriers licenses, for example. So if your waste is being disposed of, are you sure that that waste carrier has a license to do so? And if so, where's that waste going? It's going to increase your stakeholder confidence. So as alluded to before, if you've got an ISO global worldwide recognized standard, your stakeholders are going to favor that. It improves employee morale. So as we've said all along, there is this huge push at the moment on the environment and what we can do as people to help that. So if you've got people, for example, that are working from home, are they printing a lot? Do they need to? Could you provide them with a recycling bin that's going to make them feel better about that? It's all going to improve their morale and make them feel like you're really doing what's right for the environment. And it's also going to give you new business opportunities with environmentally aware customers. So it does set you aside from the competition if you have got an ISO 14001 or any other standard in place. But this just is really evidence that you have a framework in place and you are effectively and actively working towards doing better for the environment. Next slide, please. So as Terry's mentioned before, we do have an SDS Academy, and this at the moment is being held virtually, but however, we can do face-to-face courses once the pandemic allows. So we do a range of bespoke courses. We do the introduction, internal and lead auditor courses for 14001, but we can also do a more bespoke course on site at your premises if you wish, that we can have as many sort of delegates as you want, but it can be very bespoke to you. Next slide, please. And following on from that, virtual training is simple to arrange. It's cost effective. It can offer more flexibility. So if you would prefer to do an online course that's run at your leisure, that's absolutely fine. It's going to ensure safety and welfare of your learners and tutors, especially with the pandemic at the moment being on the road. If we can do it virtually, that's fantastic. It maintains the same quality of delivery as classroom learning. So we don't change anything other than the fact that it is online. You will still get the same quality, and delegates continue their personal development while working at home. Next slide, please. So why use SDS? So SDS, as Terry mentioned, is the world's leading inspection, verification, testing and certification company. The UK's SGS certification business is divided into 4 regions. So we have South East England, Wales and South West England, Northern England, and Scotland and Ireland. The reason for this is because although SDS are a huge global brand, we like to have a local feel. So by splitting our regions into 4, it means that although we have offices all around the world that we are more than happy to put you in touch with, it means that there should be somebody local within your area that you can speak to at any point around anything you may need. And although sometimes a huge global company can be quite intimidating, we want you to really feel that we are your local certification body and we can always be here to help. So each region has their own dedicated team, and that would be auditors, regional managers, sales representatives, laboratories, etc. So there will be a wide mix of people within your region and your area that you can speak to. And even if it's something that we can't do within your area and we can do globally, we will be the people that would help you drive that. Think global, act local. We're hopefully on everybody's doorstep. Next slide, please. SDS is accredited by the United Kingdom Accreditation Service, also known as UCAS, and this is to provide certification in the UK. SDS has been assessed against internationally recognised standards to demonstrate our competence, impartiality, and performance capability. We work with you in partnership to deliver certification and derive maximum benefits, and our friendly and knowledgeable team provide a personal touch. We do have a huge team of technical capabilities, sales representatives, auditors, anybody you can imagine that would help you in this process. Certification isn't there to catch you out. We want to help you and to continually improve your organisation. So if you were to go down the certification route, we don't like you to be afraid almost of having an audit. We want it to work with you. We want to be able to be here for you and really help drive continuous improvement within your organisation. Next slide, please. So SDS auditors are consistently rated highly by our customers, and we actually did a customer satisfaction survey this year, and we're pleased to say that 85% of the respondents were very satisfied with our knowledge, with our auditors' knowledge. 87% were also very satisfied with the auditor communication, confirming their auditor was clear, open-minded and informative. 90% of people were very satisfied with the timeline for delivery of an audit report, and 93% of respondents felt very satisfied that the site visit was structured to suit their operations. As I alluded to before, we're here for you. We want to make this work and continuously improve your organisation. So we're not here to almost catch you out on an audit. It's to check that you're working in line with the certification and how we can improve that for you. Next slide, please. Thank you. So over to Freddie for any questions that anybody might have.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks for that, Sarah Jo. And thank you also, Terry. We have got a few questions coming in, so I'll just start at the top. First one's a quick one. Can someone please tell me who the key contact is for SDS covering Northern Ireland?
Yes, so that's actually my colleague, Ellen Kane. So we can send the details by all means to you after this. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, or I can send you a quick email, yeah, by all means I can introduce you to our Irish colleagues, no problem at all.
Fantastic, thanks Sarah Jo. Do you offer more services other than energy related for sustainability, e.g. support with sustainability reporting for GRI standards, verification of reports, etc.?
I'll take that. Yeah, absolutely we do. So we are a testing, verification, certification company. So yes, absolutely we have a new team, a new business line actually that we call ESG, that is heavily involved within sustainability and the environment. So absolutely verification, anything like that. If it's something that you don't feel is a sort of a standard ISO certification, please do still speak to us. We can have a chat about your needs and what you sort of need out of a verification. We have teams that are working behind the scenes that can sort of answer any of those sorts of testing and verification queries. So somebody within the UK will be able to assist you with that. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Got another one here about 50001. Why would an ISO 50001 energy management system help save me money?
I'll take this one. Well, to be honest with you, like I already said earlier in the presentation, I don't want to repeat myself, but it is a no-brainer. 50,001 as an energy management system embeds decision making to concentrate, or energy performance basically is considered in every business decision where energy performance could be affected. So it embeds a management system within the organization that ensures that every time there's an impact on energy performance, whether it's new or changed processes or bringing in new personnel, that energy performance is a consideration. It also means that it focuses an organization on the energy, on energy data, and having that reliable data source to be able to make informed decisions whenever they're making any of those business decisions. It also then brings in all of the organization's personnel, so it involves everyone in the organization from senior management team right down, ensuring that they have the right competence, ensuring that they have the right awareness to be able to make the correct decisions that affect energy performance and derive that energy performance improvement. And all of that really goes back to senior management and back to the very start, where 50,001 ensures that there's a policy set which is committed to by the senior management team. And it's that senior level commitment to the management system that ultimately then drives on improved energy performance.
Fantastic, cheers Terry. Another one, it says, isn't doing an ESOS assessment a cheaper option than having ISO 50001?
I suppose yes, in many cases, but no in other cases. And honestly, because obviously it depends on organizations out there. Various organizations of various different sizes, and depending on the scope of what they're doing, things can be much cheaper. And typically an energy or an ESOS assessment for a simplified ESOS assessment for a simplified organization or a simple structure organization would typically be cheaper than implementing an ISO 50001 and gaining certification to it. But as that complexity changes, then typically no, it moves away towards energy or ISO 50001 being the more cost-effective solution. Now, what I would like to say, the caveat to all of this is that 50,001, whilst it may not, 50,001 certification, whilst it may not be the most cost-effective as far as initial cost is concerned, if you even take a look at the design and procurement clauses of 50,001, where it makes you look at a life cycle cost analysis or a life cycle cost, typically ESOS only requires that an organization identifies the opportunities for improving energy performance. There is typically nothing that ensures an organization actually does anything about that. SDS have conducted, and never mind SGS, actually the Environment Agency and the data that they've published with regards to whether organizations have implemented and taken advantage of the opportunities they've identified. Typically they haven't, whereas those who have 50,001 certification, because of the specific requirement for maintaining certification based on the proviso that you continually improve energy performance, and this almost guarantees that organizations are seeing that cost back from the certification, whereas for ESOS assessments typically it doesn't. So realistically, overall, 50,001 certification is probably going to be the cheaper option.
Cool. We've got one on 14,001, so I think that's for Sarah Jo. Do you have any ISO 14,001 auditor courses that are scheduled? Probably looking at virtual.
Absolutely, yes. So we have internal auditor and lead auditor. So lead auditor would mean that you could potentially audit your suppliers, depending on what course you want. And yes, and by all means, we can have a chat afterwards, and I can send you our course profile, no problem at all. It is all on our website, but yes, absolutely we do.
Fabulous, thank you for that. Do you provide certification for compliance for products with reference to the EU SUP directive? If so, could you please send me the contact details?
We do have a business line for SIP, so absolutely we can assist you with that. Yes, no problem. I'm trying to think of the best way to share details, Freddie, but yes, we can contact you after this, no problem at all. We do have an SIP business line that will be able to assist you with that, yes.
Brilliant, thanks Sarah Jo. Would the 14,001 look into our overseas supply chain as well, or is it purely the UK office?
No, SDS can provide certification across its network of 140 countries. We are a fully multinational organization with the ability to deliver certification across the world. We hold many contracts where we deliver multi-site organization certification to across the globe, with the ability to send auditors from the UK or source local auditors depending on the environmental complexity of the organization, whichever one is best suited to ensure that there's a competent auditor conducting that assessment. But yet we're fully capable of delivering 14,001 and 50,001 certification across the world.
Perfect. Cheers, Terry. How long does it take to complete a typical 14 or 50,001 company accreditation process? How long is timescales, cost, and how frequent the audits are?
How long is a piece of string as far as to how quickly that can be done? It really depends on the organization and the resource that they have available to it. I've been involved in implementing systems myself. You can do it within 3-4 months, but typically it takes possibly up to maybe 6 months to a year would probably be the average. And that's taking it from scratch up to fully implementing, making sure that all of the management systems and processes are fully embedded into the organization before bringing on an organization like yourselves to conduct the certification.
Okay. Would it be worth us sending out one of our readiness checklists when we're sending out these slides? Would that help?
Yeah, great idea.
Cool. Right, I'll ensure that we do that. We've got a couple more questions still coming through. We've already got certification to ISO 9001. Will this help us implementing 50 or 14?
Most definitely, yeah. 50,001 and 14,001 are both, and 9,001 are all based on Annex SL, or the high-level structure. So back in 2015, ISO started moving towards this new the current 10-clause standard, which means that there's the same model for all management system standards being brought in line with each other. So that effectively means if you have 9001, then you're probably about 70 to 80% of the way there already for having the systems and processes in place to update it just in line with the requirements of 14 or 50,001. So already having one management system, whether that's 9, 14, 45, for health and safety, or any of those, is already a significant contributor to having the process in place to adopt and integrate any other of those standards along with it.
Beautiful, thanks, Terry. What's the validity of an ISO 50,001 and a 14,001 certificate? How long are they valid for?
Typically, again, if you send out the route to achieving, or the, what do you call it, the checklist, then a lot of the information will be on that for any organization, but typically it's 3 years. So the process starts with stage 1 and stage 2 initial assessment. And once you gain your initial certification, then that certificate is valid for 3 years, and that's subject to a minimum of annual surveillance audits. And then on your 3rd anniversary, there is what's termed a recertification, which is a full reevaluation of all of the requirements of the standard to determine it still meets with the requirements before recertification is granted. So the validity of a certificate is typically 3 years, subject to ongoing surveillance assessment.
Awesome. Another one on timescales. This might have already been covered. How long does it take to write and implement a management system?
Yeah, that's the one we've already sort of covered that. So that would be, again, how long is a piece of string? It all depends on the organization and their resources, how committed they are to it, how quickly they want to do it. If you want to put all of the resources you have available to it, then it can be done in quite a reasonably short period, a few months. But typically, on average, we would see that it's normal. We would say it's typically 6 months to a year.
Excellent, cheers. We've got another question here. Will an ISO 14,000 or 50,001 management system be suitable for my organisation?
Why would it not?
Yeah,
It's just a question, is it open to everybody? Is there anyone that it shouldn't go to?
No,
I can't. No, I can't think of an example of an organisation that wouldn't benefit.
Excellent. And I can see Tommy Irwin, I know you've got your hand up. Have you got a question for us? Do you want to unmute yourself? I don't think you might have gone. We've got another time.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Yes, Tommy.
Is there an additional or another type of certification for sustainability alone that you can use as a stepping stone towards the 50,001?
uh,
A certificate of compliance.
well, I suppose not. There's no 50,000, like if you remember 16,001 or 6,001 was the priority 50,001, but all of those other standards were sort of circumvented by ISO bringing out the international standard 50,001. So typically 50,001 would be the standard that anyone would go to with regards to certification. There's not really a stepping stone to 50,001 as such.
On that note, though, however, what we could do, Tommy, if it was of interest, we could do what we call a gap analysis, where if you have part of your system ready, or if you think that you're working towards 50 and you're not quite sure how much work you need to complete it before your stage 1 initial visit, then we can do what we call a one-day gap analysis, where we could send an auditor in to check what you have there already and sort of help you to close any gaps before certification is stage 1 and stage 2 sort of goes ahead.
Well, I would like you to send me then, or Terry to send me information around the 50,001, what information I need to gather as a refresher for it.
No problem. Absolutely fine, Tommy. That's no problem. We can do that for you.
Yeah, no problem, Tommy.
I thank you, Terry. I'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I've just had one last question come in. What is the relation between compliance and 14,001?
I'll take this one, Sarah Jo. Well, it's not really a minefield, as the God's honest truth.
Thank you.
A 14,001 audit or a 50,001 audit is not a legal compliance audit. While there is requirements within the standards for how an organisation to demonstrate their compliance, and they're having the knowledge and the understanding of the legislation that comply to them, and that they must then demonstrate that they comply with it. So whenever we conduct a 14,001 or an energy management systems audit, we are looking to see that the organisation can meet the requirements of the standard, and that we are auditing to see that they have the knowledge of the legislation that apply to them, and that they have evaluated their compliance with that legislation. We would also then be, during our audit, assessing from our observations that we do during the audit that compliance is visible. That's not the same as doing a full evaluation of compliance or doing a compliance audit. So we will, during an SDS audit, we cannot then turn around and say to you that you are 100% compliant with all legislation. At the end of the day, an audit is a sample of the observations that we've seen at that point in time. So there is a distinct difference. Whilst it is the organization's responsibility to comply with the legislation, as a third-party auditor, we are then evaluating during our assessment that you are demonstrating your compliance to that, and that you have the correct controls in place to ensure your compliance with that legislation, or with all of the legislation that are typically applicable to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Terry. Just had a question from Derek. It's just about the PowerPoint. Yes, Derek, we will be sending out a copy of the presentation to everyone. I'll get that collected and sent out. So yeah, that's all the questions. So thank you very much, Terry and Sarah Jo, for that. And thank you to everyone that signed in and asked a question and just listened. If you've got any more questions you want to speak to anyone, best email address to use is uk.nowisthetime@sgs.com. And the direct number for our certification area is 01276 697 715. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. YouTube if you just want to have a look. And our website is www.sgs.co.uk/certification. So once again, thank you all very much, and I'll ensure that you all get a copy of this PowerPoint and the webinar. Hope to see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.